I should preface this video by saying I don't care if Brett Kavanaugh gets nominated to the Supreme Court of the United States, which at the time of this recording seems likely. And I should add to that I honestly don't care either way, meaning, at this point in the culture war, I don't care if the SCOTUS is filled with liberal activist judges who quicken the Me Too generation's self-imposed nihilistic death spiral, and I equally don't care if it's filled with right-wing, quote, Nazis, unquote, who take away abortion rights or women's access to all birth control, including the precious pill, and even go so far as institute white Sharia law. I just don't care. Because who among us at this point would say women don't have it coming? As long as men have no legal say in the outcome of a pregnancy, fine. Then I just don't care if female-only reproductive rights get taken away altogether. Too bad, too fucking sad. The main reason I don't care any longer is because I think we are past the point of caring. We're past the point of no return. We're not putting the genie back in the bottle. And this culture war could turn hot after just about any political confrontation now. So in my opinion, caring about any of it amounts to window dressing in the triage ward. Because I truly believe we are headed towards some sort of catastrophic societal reboot. Or the bottleneck, as reactionary expat, or as he is now known, the Franklin, puts it. And not everyone is coming out the other side. And this untenable situation comes as I'm getting older and just want to take care of my house and my garden and hang out with some friends and family and play a few video games now and then before the 6-foot trench is dug for me. So why talk about it if I don't care, right? Just build my bunker and shut the hell up, right? Well, for whatever reason, I still do care about what this orchestrated political ambush on Kavanaugh means for men. And my concern is not for powerful men like him, per se. I'm worried about the nobodies like you and me. Because whatever happens up top trickles down until it eventually becomes a flood dousing our heads. And we won't have the Lindsey Grahams of the world risking their necks to swoop in and save us. We will be on our own, and any reputational damage will be ours to manage. And if you have a gang rapist accusation hanging over your head, do you really think you're making it through the coming bottleneck without the most powerful people in the world on your side? Okay, with that somewhat troubling mental wallpaper plastered into all of our minds, let's talk about Sam Harris and his latest Waking Up podcast episode. In it, he expresses outrage at the support Kavanaugh got, and I will be playing some excerpts and addressing his nonsense sort of line by line. But first, let's talk a little bit about Sam, the great thinker. Now, obviously, I wouldn't be talking about him if he hadn't influenced me. I've read many of his books. I've watched most of his debates on YouTube. And a decade ago, if you had asked me, I would have told you he was one of Western civilization's most important voices. My opinion of him has changed. Because today he seems like the sad remnant of some dying breed. After all the pointless mayhem in the atheist community over the past decade, which really isn't worth getting into anymore, although I will probably have to touch on it a bit here. After all the mayhem in the atheist community, there's Sam, still living the dream up on stage with Jordan Peterson, and making the same tired arguments he made back in 2003. I may make a separate video analyzing the recent talks because I have criticisms for both of them. You could probably call Sam the atheist at this point, and I don't know how complimentary such a title would be. The thing you have to realize is, once feminists level the crosshairs on you in whatever movement or community you are part of, you have already lost the battle. That's the magic they wield with their vaginas and the gynocentrism we have in the world. They are not fighting anything that reasoning men might recognize as a fair or honest war with logical objectives. With mindless gynocentrism on their side, either they get control of what you busted your ass to build and they contributed nothing to, despite claiming it's all they're doing because they squeezed the people participating out their vaginas. Either they get control of it, or it gets burned to the ground and they walk away pretending like they were the victims of the wreckage. See Mike Aru's Law for more on that. Sam, as a male feminist, will never understand this. And yes, he is a male feminist. If you don't agree, you should after hearing me out here. And I believe the main reason why he has embraced feminism, and this isn't me making excuses for this choice of his, but rather trying to delve into his own personal reasoning. The main reason is probably a simple matter of his family makeup. It's him, his wife, and 2 daughters. Sam has no sons. He has often expressed worry about his family's safety due to the public statements he makes, and claims it has contributed to his decision to own guns. I don't begrudge him any of this concern or his consequential gun ownership. I have no problem with any of it. In fact, it's probably the one thing, and maybe the only thing anymore about him that I still respect. despite having my problems with his public opinions anymore, I wish him and his family the best. Still, it has to be taken into consideration when weighing his words. And concern for your wife and daughters does not have to mean you drink the feminist Kool-Aid. In fact, if your head is in the right place, it probably means the exact opposite, though you will be hard-pressed to convince Sam. For that logical incongruity, a self-styled rationalist cannot be forgiven, or at least that's how I see it. Despite being what one might call the atheist these days, Sam is a devout member of the Progressive Cathedral, which in my humble opinion completely shatters whatever credibility to which atheists can lay claim after the collapse of New Atheism. If you don't know what is meant by the Progressive Cathedral, sometimes just referred to as the Cathedral, it's a neo-reactionary concept. And if you don't know who or what a neo-reactionary is, and I don't know where to stop the bleeding here as far as backing up the explanatory truck and defining terms. Anyway, if you don't know what a neo-reactionary is, it's essentially someone who laid the groundwork for the emergence of the alt-right, or white nationalism. And they, or specific philosophers within the community, coined the term the cathedral among their many criticisms of modern society. What it refers to is the replacement of traditional religious institutions in our society, or the established church, with secular and progressive belief systems, and filling in the social vacuum left behind by vanishing church gatherings with champagne socialist get-togethers like going to postmodernist art galleries and crap like that. Secular dogma and progressive preaching have become the new faith, and the old ones and socializing at church have been replaced by the religion of feminism and diversity, and this religion's new devotees will also label you a heretic for questioning their mystical beliefs. Now, Sam has run afoul of the cathedral from time to time, especially with his criticism of the little brown Islamic people, but there is no doubt that he craves its acceptance. Okay, I just want to mention one more thing to add perspective on Sam's Gynocentrism before I start playing excerpts from his podcast, and that is an upcoming all-day Pangburn philosophy conference he keeps promoting. I think it's called the Day of Reflection or some crap like that. Now, I don't know how much of a role Sam is playing in its organization or if he himself will be giving a talk, but there's going to be some roundtable discussion by borderline feminists like Barry Weiss and Cara Santa Maria or whatever her name is. And the title is, Has Me Too Gone Too Far? As if there's any question about that. But that's the game Sam likes to play, to simultaneously maintain his status within the Progressive Cathedral, as well as his membership in the so-called intellectual dark web. I'm tempted to do a video on that bullshit alone as well. Anyway, the trick Sam likes to play is to host and or promote women carrying on about feminist topics, remove himself from the discussion so he does not have to take ownership of whatever is said, and further enhance his plausible deniability chances by giving it cute little titles. We all know what these hens will do. They will simply pay lip service to distancing themselves from false accusations, while still supporting idiots like Rose McGowan and Ashley Judd, who knew exactly what they were doing way back when they went into hotel rooms to negotiate career advancement. Like anyone sane does that. Sam, I know you're never going to listen to this, but I'll just talk to you directly here. Sam, Me Too is fucking garbage, and you know it. So just grow a set of balls and finally say it, and stop straddling the fence. Entertaining the notion that it has any leg to stand on is no less ridiculous than claiming an illiterate Arabic Jew literally rose from his grave 2,000 years ago. Feminism is your chosen faith, Sam, and as long as it remains so, your atheism card is revoked. With no further ado, let's dive into the podcast.
Okay, then there's been the Kavanaugh hearing. Oh my God, that was horrible. It is amazing how divided the country is on this. And there are many people who I respect who appear to be, to my eye, completely confused on this issue. The idea is that we should be abiding by the criminal standard here, and that if we don't, this could happen to anyone, right? I think that's ridiculous. This is not a criminal trial. The question isn't whether Kavanaugh should be put in jail. The question is whether he should be given one of the most consequential jobs in American society.
Right, so right off the bat, we go back to my point that when this stuff plays out among the most powerful people at the highest levels of society, the real problem is the fallout from it that the rest of us suffer. Sam, like a lot of feminists, will pretend this kind of brutal scrutiny only happens where it counts. But remind him that men are losing their jobs as fucking hotel clerks for calling women sluts on Twitter or Facebook or wherever online, and he will simply move the goalposts from the importance of the employment to the fact that we shouldn't tolerate hate speech.
Now, whatever happened 36 years ago, he did enough in that hearing to make an impartial person think that this man doesn't belong anywhere near the Supreme Court.
Sam, you remember Clarence Thomas angrily calling his hearing a high-tech lynching? He had every right to do so. How about we publicly accuse you of gang rape and see what it does to your emotional state?
For instance, he lied repeatedly. Okay, this is not debatable. More or less everything he said about his yearbook appears to have been a lie.
Dr. Ford lied about her claustrophobia, about her fear of flying being so strong the hearing had to be delayed, and whether or not she gave advice on taking a polygraph. If you're following the case as closely as you seem to be suggesting you are, Sam, you have to know that an ex-boyfriend has submitted testimony that she used her knowledge in psychology to advise a friend how to get the desired results from a lie detector test. She lied under oath, Sam, but you will never mention this or will attempt to drown this fact under a deluge of ultimately meaningless caveats.
Now, you might think the problem is with this process, right? We have a process that now entails ambushing good people with embarrassing facts from their adolescence based on pure partisan malice and opportunism. And this would force even good people to lie, right? We have a corrupt process that is guaranteed to make good people behave unethically. So he had to lie.
Forgetting the fact that you are assuming your own unproven premise here, Sam, that he is in fact lying because you don't like what he said about his yearbook scribbles or whatever, forgetting all that for a moment, you're intentionally leaving out the most important part of any ambush. Timing. Sam, they sat on Dr. Ford's testimony for weeks to release it at just the right time for optimum political effect. You are truly portraying yourself as a fool by not admitting this.
In fact, lying in the way that he did played for me like a failed intelligence test. This was an IQ test, right? The first question was, what does boof mean? Right now, I'm prepared to say that there is no universe in which the word boof means flatulence. Kavanaugh and I are nearly the same age, right? I think I'm 2 years younger. Every guy my age in the country knows what the word boof means.
Sam, I'm younger than both of you, but the colloquialism you're looking for is boff, not boof. Boof can mean anything to anyone, including puking. So now you're just portraying yourself as a square and clueless liberal snob.
Perhaps this is a further effect that Trump has had on our politics. Even the quality of our lying has deteriorated. It used to be that lies had to be believable to function properly. Apparently, that's no longer the case. The physics of lying has changed.
Okay, so now Sam is about to kick the whinging into high gear. The physics of lying has changed. What the fuck does that even mean? And mind you, this comes from someone who has lit into the likes of Deepak Chopra for statements about quantum spirituality or whatever. But here he is trying to analyze whether someone lied or not through a lens of general relativity, I guess.
Anyway, as has been said repeatedly, this was a job interview. A horrible job interview, granted, but an interview nonetheless. And it is entirely reasonable to hold the view that Kavanaugh failed it. And one can do so without it being a sign of one's partisanship.
But not without it being a clear sign of how this lynching will affect the rest of us. Sam, what happened to this being one of the most important positions in society, a seat on the Supreme Court? Now it's just a little old job interview where being a political hack doesn't matter? If a seat on the Supreme Court is so damn important, then impartiality and fairness in interrogating the applicant is paramount as well.
Another way to take partisanship out of it at least for me, is that everything I think about Kavanaugh, I also think about Bill Clinton. In fact, Clinton is worse. Again, this is not the criminal standard. Should Clinton be in prison for what has been said about his sexual indiscretions? No. But we know enough to say that the guy has been a colossal asshole. He's trailing at least one fairly credible accusation of rape. And whatever you believe about that, there's no problem forming a general picture of his sexual ethics. Now, where he falls on the Harvey Weinstein continuum, I don't know. But he was not a good guy in this area of his life. One does not have to be partisan to acknowledge that.
Wow, nice word salad, Sam. What was the fucking point? You didn't say anything there, besides you don't like Clinton. And I don't give a fuck if you don't like Clinton. Were you trying to imply that he should never have been allowed to be president? You endorsed his complicit wife in the last election, you jackass.
Now, another concern here that's arising in defense of Kavanaugh is that now it appears to be open season on men. The Me Too movement, whatever its underlying merits, now has somewhat the character of a feminist moral panic. Now, I'm somewhat sympathetic to this concern.
Gee, I'm somewhat thankful, Sam. Let's all wait for the but here.
If you go far enough to the left on the political spectrum, you do find people who appear to have been driven insane by thinking about sex and gender and the politics of hooking up. But the question is, does any of that apply in this case? And it seems to me that it doesn't.
Shocker. So it may be worth it to get into that past atheist community drama that I mentioned I really didn't want to touch on. It could add some necessary perspective to Sam's opinion, so let me see if I can get to it as briefly as possible. Sam has thrown his good buddy Lawrence Krauss under the bus, and he has done so because of accusations made by Miss Twitter PTSD herself, Melody Hensley. Now, this happened many, many years ago, but the accusations didn't affect Krauss's career until a couple of months ago, when he was all but drummed out of the debate and roundtable discussion circuit, and his university temporarily suspended him until they could do their own investigation of the accusations. So Sam has chosen to believe the accusations of some feminist who claims she got PTSD from tweets over his good friend Lawrence Krauss's claims that it's all a bunch of crap. Now, it's another case of a bimbo going into a hotel room. Why these women do this, I don't know, but they all do it, and they all think that we're going to care about what happened after they went into those hotel rooms. Here's an idea, ladies. Don't go into a hotel room because there's nothing in there you need to get at. There's no reason for you to go in there. Anyway, Sam has chosen to believe Melody Twitter PTSD Hensley over Krauss. And the fact of the matter is, it's not like she's claiming she was raped. There was no sex that even happened. It was just this weird, pathetic pawing at each other incident. Krauss claims at some point they jokingly pushed one another on the bed and so on. So they fooled around. They never got to sex. And they both decided, to break it up and go about their business. Now, later on, Melody Hensley claims that it was all non-consensual, of course, because she's a feminist. And Sam has chosen her side of the story over Krauss's. Now, he's going to claim that's because there are other accusations against Krauss. But what he won't do is take these claims individually and denounce the ones that are sheer crap, like Hensley's. Okay, so I think that's enough of that.
Now, those who do think it applies, in this case, think one of two things. They think either that Blasey Ford is lying.
There's no question that she is, Sam, but you're just too much of one of those feminists you claim to be distancing yourself from to admit it.
Or they think she's mistaken, and that we have good reason to believe that she's mistaken. And here I feel people are just failing to think in a Bayesian way about prior probabilities.
Oh, Jesus Christ, Sam. Who the fuck is going to do a Bayesian analysis when none of the fucking witnesses corroborate her account of events, including her best fucking friend at the time? I'm going to skip through most of this part of his rambling because it's patently absurd. It's just Sam trying to baffle everyone with academic bullshit.
I mean, I've seen incredibly dumb tweets about her seeking a book deal and seeking to be famous, and This is an extraordinarily unlikely thing for a person to do.
Sam, dear fucking God, even you can't possibly be this fucking stupid. Anita Hill got a book deal and still, to this day, gets paid for speaking events. Fucking hell, man, pull your head out of your feminist ass.
Granted, it could be made more likely if we knew more about her, if we knew that she was a fame-seeking sort of person. You sort of know it when you see it. But did Blasey Ford present in that way at all?
Sam, did Anita Hill present that way? If Dr. Ford's childish personality isn't an act, then how the fuck did she ever get through the PhD process? Unless we all need to turn into Tom Cruise here and start believing psychology is total bullshit, her thesis should have been torn apart much more ruthlessly than anything she, quote, endured, unquote, during this hearing. Sam, one half of the podium treated her like she was a fucking child because that's how she presented herself. And the other half clocked the fuck out and let a woman gently ask a few tough questions.
She was the antithesis of that personality. She can't get away from those lights and cameras fast enough. So that the fame-seeking idea seems completely crazy to me. It just seems bizarre to believe that she would have been talking about this problem for at least 6 years, preparing the ground to unveil her allegations should Kavanaugh ever get nominated to the court. And again, this is based on some vindictiveness that has no explanation because she's lying, right? She's never been victimized by Kavanaugh in any way. And if she were going to lie about this, would she place a witness in the room who, also being accused, would seem likely to be hostile to her account? She put Mark Judge, his friend, in the room, and she's urged the FBI to speak with him. Is that the sort of lie you would tell if you were making this up?
If Mark Judge did what Dr. Ford claims he did, which is aid and abet a sexual assault, would she just casually approach him at the grocery store a couple of weeks later, like she claims she did? Sam, it doesn't add up. It's a complete fabrication in her mind. Who does this? Who approaches an accomplice in an attempted rape and says, "Hello, how you doing? I'd like to talk to you." No, you turn around and you get the hell out of there, or you alert the police that he's standing right there at the grocery store and they should come arrest him. What you're not getting, Sam, is that if this assault, this alleged assault, didn't matter to her enough to go to the police, then why the hell should we give a rat's ass about it 30 years later? Why?
This does not have the hallmarks of a lie. Conversely, all of the probabilities and incentives are aligned in the other way for Kavanaugh. He appears to have spent most of high school and college as a drunk Christian jock asshole.
Sam, Obama, in his best-selling Dreams of My Father, admitted to spending high school as a drunk, drug-taking jock asshole. And that book all but launched his campaign for president. What is on your fucking mind, man? How can you be this fucking lost?
There are not many people in public life who, when you scratch the surface on them, what you hear celebrated about them in their own yearbooks and even in books written for publication about them, is how hammered they got as teenagers, continuously. Now, I say this as someone who drank way too much throughout high school and college. Virtually everyone was a binge drinker back then. But not everyone made it central to their identity, the way Kavanaugh and his friends did.
I spent the last 2 years of high school in a daze, locking away the questions that life seemed insistent on posing. I kept playing basketball, attended classes sparingly, drank beer heavily, and tried drugs enthusiastically. I discovered that it didn't make any difference whether you smoked reefer in the white classmate's sparkling new van, or in the dorm room with some brother you'd met down at the gym, or on the beach with a couple of Hawaiian kids who had dropped out of school and now spent most of their time looking for an excuse to brawl.
So then the question is, how likely is he to be lying about this? And what are the incentives for him to lie about this? Well, the incentives for him to lie about this are enormous. There's nothing mysterious about his behavior. Her behavior would be astonishing on many levels if she were making this up.
Sam probably believes the feminist lie that only 8% of rape accusations are false. He also probably believes a lot of other feminist statistical bullshit, like the 1 in 5 nonsense. But again, he's an atheist and a rational thinker, don't you know? Okay, so then he carries on for a while about the mistaken identity stuff. I really don't care. You can check out his podcast if you care about what he has to say on this. Let's fast forward because I want to just make a few more points before wrapping this video up.
And finally, Kavanaugh's demeanor and behavior at that hearing are entirely compatible with his guilt. Now, it's true that much of his demeanor and behavior was also compatible with his innocence.
But never mind that, because reasons.
The way he danced around the issue of the FBI, the way he clearly didn't want further investigation of these claims, that was really telling for me. In addition to his other lying and just some of the dumb things he did in his testimony, that's where his behavior suddenly became incompatible with his innocence.
Yeah, Sam, it's telling for you because you look at the world through a feminist lens, where men are guilty until proven innocent. Why should anyone have to delay getting a job or a career promotion based on accusations backed up by no one, including best friends? You know, I hate to bring up Lindsey Graham again, but should we dunk him in a tank to see if he's a witch? And if he protests, does that prove his guilt? Jesus fucking Christ, Sam, what happened to your skeptical atheist mind?
Anyway, I'm amazed that people are seeing this the other way and think that somehow the most plausible version of what happened here is that we now have women who are just eager to lie about their experience of this guy.
I hope everybody noticed the sleight of hand Sam tried to get away with there. He said, quote, women, unquote, as in plural. What he just tried to get away with is raising Swetnick and the other woman, Ramirez, I think her name is. I forget her name. Anyway, he tried to raise their claims to the same levels of believability he'd like us all to think are present in Dr. Ford's testimony. With one casual offhand statement, he legitimized Swetnick's batshit insane claims of gang rape without having to actually bring them up or defend them. Nice little trick there, huh? If you want to know what I think about Swetnick, go over to my Gab account and look at my recent posts. I'm not going to address her demented claims in this video, which is going longer than I thought. Okay, just a couple more points here and I'll wrap things up. As I mentioned at the start, I don't give a fuck about the abortion issue one way or the other anymore, because the little guys like you and me have no legal say in it. But what someone like Sam, who's supposedly this great modern thinker, will never broach is what would happen if Kavanaugh declared himself pro-choice. Now again, I don't care. Pro-life, pro-choice, what's the point if taking a side as a regular Joe amounts to legal squat? But if Kavanaugh jumped ship over to the pro-choice side, all the manufactured, overwrought concern for the women accusing him would magically evaporate in an instant. This is what frustrates me about Sam and his supposed ability to think critically. He can, for lack of a better term, red pill us all on Islam and gun ownership and so many other hot-button issues, make great leaps of impressive logic on these topics. But when it comes to the Church of Feminism and Gynocentrism, he's only capable of little intellectual baby steps, if that. And we're all supposed to cut him a break because he's married with 2 daughters or something. Bullshit. All right, everybody. I think I've addressed Sam's male feminism enough for one video. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next upload.